Thank you for joining me for this episode of God Talk. And on this episode of God Talk, we're going to get a little political. We're just 3 weeks away from the long awaited 2024 presidential elections. And it's time to talk a little bit about what we ought to do as Christians, what our duty is as Christians as we face this upcoming election. I don't know about you, but I feel like this campaign season for President of the United States has been going on, honestly, since 2020. Like from the time that Biden took office, it just feels like it's been a continuous campaign. And I really want to title this podcast basically Two Flawed Candidates, One Real Choice, because the truth is like both of these candidates are flawed in different ways, in many respects, both in serious ways. But even though the candidates may be flawed, and all people are to some extent or the other, but it seems more so just in terms of our choices on both sides of the political party this time. Even though both candidates are flawed, it's really not about the candidates; it's about the stances that they take. And you know, I have to admit, I mean, I kind of thought that the Republicans were making a big mistake by renominating Trump. He had so much baggage. Yeah, I thought that he could potentially beat Biden just because of Biden's age. And after he trounced Biden in the one debate that they had several months back, then you have the Democrats that they just kicked him out. They picked a new candidate. What was interesting is that they picked Kamala Harris to be their candidate, and she, up until that point, had been basically one of the most unpopular vice presidents that we've ever seen. So it was interesting that, it was probably a time factor. By the time they kicked him out, they didn't have time to really run another primary or select a candidate another way. So they almost treated it like he died in office, which many Republicans, claim that he did anyways, that he's barely got a pulse. And so they ended up going with the vice president. When the president passes, you pick a vice president. Well, they pushed him over a cliff. He didn't quite die. He's still alive and kicking, even though the conspiracy theorists don't think that he is. But they went ahead and went with the vice president, Kamala Harris. And it's been interesting. She got a surge of support from the very beginning. She did quite well in the debate. I mean, I have to tell you, Trump looked, better than Biden when he debated Biden in his debate with Kamala. But man, he did not look good. He wasn't the fiery Trump that we're used to. He was taking all kinds of baits that she was laying out for him, and she kicked his butt. And and she got a pretty good bump from that, and then that was followed up quickly by the Democratic National Convention. She's been criticized for not doing news interviews. She did the 60 Minutes one, which then there was some controversy with that. She just did one, I think it was yesterday, with Fox News. She wanted to do another debate. Trump was not willing to. Trump's the one who's kind of gone a little silent. Not that it really matters because he's got so much on the record anyways. But even with Trump somewhat coasting, it seems like a lot of the magic, the excitement around Kamala is wearing off. And I have to tell you, I used to be really excited about politics. I used to, stay up all night, and it was like watching your favorite team playing in the Super Bowl, and you just like you're gripped with all kinds of suspense, and just you're eating it, drinking it, breathing it. And I have to be honest, I'm not that way anymore. Mainly because, I recognize that one party holds my views a whole lot more than the other party, but politics in America in general have just become very corrupt. The party leaders will pretty much push and promote and determine. They make us think that we have a vote in who we're choosing, but I think this last election cycle where Biden and Trump were so incredibly unpopular, but yet they were the only real candidates within both of their parties to get the nomination, it's just picked. We don't really have a choice. The money, the support, and the propaganda all goes behind the ones that the party selects. And those are the ones that you're going to just have to go along with. So not really excited about either candidates. I will say for the most part, for Trump, policy-wise, I've always said this, I very much kind of agree with him 90+% of the time. He seems to be more in favor of abortion than what I am. His wife certainly is. But I suspect that he modifies what he says on topics like that just to become elected. I don't know that I really believe that he is moderate on abortion is what he comes across. So honestly, like the only place that I would differ from him politically, really, I think, is when it comes to foreign policy. I would call him much more of an isolationist than what Republicans have been in the past. I know many people on the right do not agree with that, but they're wrong. He is. It used to be that Republicans were the ones who enforced the big stick across the world, America's interests and so forth. And it just seems like the Democrats have kind of taken that mantle. And I think partly part of that is because much of the West has become kind of liberal and they kind of stick together and support each other. And back in the days of Reagan and so forth, it was much more conservative and they stuck together supporting each other. So I think that's kind of why it's flopped and flipped. But honestly, I think it's in America's best interest to buy your friends, pay countries to have friends, and to police the world so that the world does not get out of control and you find yourself in a much bigger mess than what you otherwise would. So I'm gonna differ with Trump on that, but otherwise, policy-wise, I pretty much agree with almost all of his policies. I think he's morally flawed. I think he embraces and encourages conspiracy theories that are just absolutely insane. He sensationalizes things that don't need to be sensationalized. He just out and out, I think, lies at times. But then again, all politicians do. So where am I going to find something different from that? Well, I don't really need to go through all of Kamala Harris's like flaws because if you listen to this podcast, you're probably pretty much well aware of it. But I want to talk about why, even though you have two flawed politics, really as Christians, we only have one real choice. And first and foremost, to me, is just the culture war that we're in. And I would say it's not a culture war. It's ultimately a God war, because the left, at least many on the left, and Kamala would be one that has pushed these agendas, have pushed a culture that goes against God and the Bible and what's in the best interest of America, our families, our grandkids, and the future of America. Whether that be her being supportive of gender changing surgeries at taxpayers' expense of prisoners. Like, I mean, no one should be paying for, I don't think insurance companies should be paying for gender change. I mean, it's just wrong. It's not necessary. And tell me what else like insurance companies are going to pay for that isn't necessary or needed. Nothing. And so this is all just part of that culture war, that God war. And not only does Kamala support that, she supports it for people that are prisoners, people that don't pay taxes, illegal aliens. She's supportive of that as well. This just can't be. Not to mention their view, illegal immigrants, and having the border wide open and just the ramifications that has on our country, not only for allowing terrorists to come in, but criminals to come in, and for changing the culture and the values that this country is made up of, just by having the doors wide open to a large group of people who don't necessarily have a lot immediately that they can add to this country. And I don't mean for that to sound heartless or bad, but it used to be immigration. Like you had to show the value that you're going to bring to America. I guess you could argue that in a country of flat to stagnating to maybe slightly decreasing population, well, they bring in labor for a labor market potentially, but like it used to be, no, we'll take the physicists, we'll take the cream of the crop of society, because you'll come in and you'll make America a better place. And that's not how immigration works nowadays. On the left, they're way more permissive of drugs. And you think of the most leftist states like Oregon and so forth, and that whole agenda of basically, you know what? It doesn't matter if it's heroin, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's only like, as long as you're not like selling it on the street, like if you're just using it yourself, it's fine. There's no problem with it. The left definitely is against free speech. They see free speech as something that endangers their view of America and of what they want America to be. So they try to muzzle free speech. I think as Christians, we have to have concerns in all of that. We saw the free speech being limited during COVID. Like the government, big tech, and media, like they were curtailing dissenting opinions on it, and they were wrong. Think about all the COVID restrictions. I mean, we kind of forget about that. Everyone wants to bring up, January 6, 2020, and Trump's failure to act in many respects, and his temper tantrum and unwilling to admit that he lost the election and stuff like that. People bring that up, but why aren't people talking about COVID? And how the left and the Democrats were silencing people and feeding us a bunch of lies to ultimately just kind of control us. No one talks about that. I mean, they scream and yell about January of 2020, but they don't want to talk about what they did for the next couple years after that, and it's criminal. Think about the military. Someone sent me a clip of an ad that was at a Trump campaign, basically showing like how the military used to be perceived and how it's advertised under the Biden administration, like promoting gay, woke, transgender, welcoming military. Government agencies, I think the FBI and the CIA, they all recruit like people that have severe mental illness, and that's who we want fighting in our military. That's who we want serving in the highest levels of our government. Is the Biden administration would hire these transgenders to oversee like our nuclear program and just all kinds of absolute craziness. Some other issues with the left is the media monopoly. They're in bed with the media, and they control how we see and understand reality. And it's called propaganda, and it's called lies. Inflation, my goodness. I mean, think about how much things have cost because of the Biden administration. And you got Kamala saying she wouldn't really do anything different. Along with inflation, like homelessness, like I researched it today because I was almost going to do a podcast on homelessness. And in fact, like in 2023, homelessness increased in this country by like, it was 12 or 14%. It was a huge increase. And I'm sitting here thinking, what has changed in this world? Especially since COVID, like you see homeless people everywhere now, and you just didn't 4 and 5 years ago and further back. And inflation, that's part of it. It's so expensive to live, and it's been out of control. Abortion, like a lot of people are single issue voters on the right, and I guess also on the left, but I don't know as a Christian how you can support candidates that believe it's okay to dismantle babies in the womb, babies whose hearts are beating. And some of these liberal states, you can get abortions up to the time of birth. And if they're born alive, the doctors won't be prosecuted if they just allow the baby from this botched abortion to die there on the table. It's criminal. Speak about criminal. What about crime? Crime's on the increase. I just heard yesterday that the FBI revised their statistics from, it might have been 2022. I can't remember what it was, but they're like 2-year-old statistics, and they were saying violent crime went down 2% initially, but now 2 years later, they admitted it's gone up like 5%. I mean, that's like a 7% swing. And so you've got inflation going up, you got homelessness going up, you got crime going up. They're still trying to buy votes. Like just reading today, some more student loan forgiveness going on. Like if you have a certain skin color or a certain income range or whatever, like then like education's free. It's not free for everyone. It's not free for middle class people. But if you meet certain requirements, it'll be free for you. We'll forgive you all your debt. Sign me up. Sign my kids up. Oh, that's right. We're not eligible. So people that are working really hard to make it, working really hard to making the sacrifices to send their kids to college, like no help for you. Only help for the people that aren't necessarily trying as much and as hard as they can. Double standard for like just in general. On the left, like I was just reading an article, like Bill Clinton's in Georgia, and he's like going to these Black Baptist churches and they're having like campaign rallies there. Like as part of the sermon, like Bill Clinton's trying to get out the black vote. The article's actually, I think it was on CNN. It was actually saying how there's a number of black males that are saying they're giving Trump a try this time. But my question is like, if I had like a Republican, former Republican president, George Bush, or Trump, or like whoever, right? Like in my church, like as part of the service, I guarantee like the IRS would come knocking. It's just a complete double standard. And so I just don't think that, like, I get if you don't like Trump. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan at all. I mean, I don't like totally dislike him. I mean, he does definitely has some redeeming qualities, but he does have some things that challenge me. But it's not about Trump, and honestly, it's not about Kamala. She actually has done a good job in the debate and elsewhere to actually kind of come across as being likable. Great. It's not about being likable. It's about the policies. And I have to tell you, like, since this is a podcast in which I'm going to give you the predictions of the election, because something interesting is definitely going on, and that is, Trump took a pretty solid lead against Biden. They kicked out Biden. There's this temporary like support for Kamala, but the betting markets are saying this isn't really going to be a close election. In general, people that vote for Trump, like, either they don't want to like tell people what they're voting because they can't stand the media and the organizations that do the polling. And then there's others that like, I'm not happy about the situation in general, so probably won't answer the questions either. But there's only one way I'm going to vote when it's time to vote. But so the polls are looking really close. Like nationally, I think Kamala's up by 1.7%. That's nothing compared to the last two times Trump ran. I mean, I think Trump was down to Biden by over 8% and may have been down by more than that to Hillary. And he beat Hillary. And many Republicans say he beat Biden, but I'm not one of them. But he was within a hair of it. So I don't think this election's going to be close. You look at the betting odds, and honestly, like, if you want to really figure out who's going to win anything, a sporting event or anything, like, people, when money's on the line, people aren't wrong. So the betting markets have only been wrong twice since 1866 on who is going to win the election. It, once again, correctly predicted Biden last year, but guess what? It's 4 years ago, but it's predicting Trump this time around. In fact, there's a 62% chance that Trump is going to win the elections. And not only that, if you dig behind the numbers, what's really interesting is in all the swing states, the betting markets have Trump favored to win those states. I'm not saying the polls are necessarily showing that. I'm saying the betting markets are, and part of that is because Trump always he overperforms what his polling numbers are. And so Nevada is the closest. The betting markets have Trump as a 51% favorite. Wisconsin, Trump is a 56% favorite. Michigan, he's a 56% favorite. Pennsylvania, he's a 60% favorite. North Carolina, he's a 63% favorite. Georgia, he's a 65% favorite. And in Arizona, he's a 68% favorite. Now, a small change in polling will make a huge difference in the betting markets. So, I mean, this could swing the other way, but this is where the momentum's going. And I think there's a good chance because of the momentum. There's a good chance because of the way that Trump always outperforms what the polls show. I think he may win all the battleground states. So my prediction is this, that Trump will win 312 electoral votes to 226. So let's see how it turns out. If I nail it, maybe I will take up a second career as a prophet, but then again, I probably won't. But that is my guess, my prediction, 312 to 226. Not based off of any word of the Lord given to me, but based off of the momentum and based off of the betting markets. And I do appreciate some good betting markets, if I can say that as a pastor. Anyways, we'll see what happens in 3 weeks. I think this is the other thing that might be interesting about the election. I've mentioned that, there's some real like storms ahead. Potentially not. God is in control. So ultimately, he will control however things proceed from this election. But especially if Trump wins. I don't, people aren't excited about Kamala. And so if she loses, there's not going to be all of this emotion and anger that will come out because she loses. So it's possible. It's possible we get through this election season and the predictions of a lot of violence and anger and civil unrest may not be materializing, mainly because the candidate on the Democratic side is people are just pretty lukewarm. People are voting for her just because, well, they're Democrats and they're going to vote Democratic regardless. So we'll see how that turns out as well. I hope I'm right on that one. I appreciate you joining me for this episode of God Talk, in which it's been pastors' political prognostications. And I look forward to talking to you next week. God bless.